Recently, I watched the YouTube content that innocent victims are exonerated at a court in the United States. So I just put the link of the video below. Please check it out if you're interested in that. So what I focused on when I watched this YouTube content was the amount of criminal compensation they can receive and the number of places where they can receive it. So as a common point, in the United States, innocent victims can receive criminal compensation from both the government of the United States itself and the state of government where they were prosecuted. And how much they can receive the criminal compensation all depends on how long they have been in custody. And there must be the standard to decide the criminal compensation amount for innocent victims in the United States. So as long as I watch this YouTube video, the criminal compensation amount paid by the government of the United States is modest against that paid by the state government where innocent victims were persecuted. In contrast, the criminal compensation amount paid by the state government is much bigger than that paid by the government of the United States in many cases. So it seems to me the criminal compensation amount paid by the state government is decided with a great deal of discretion in addition to the standard of the criminal compensation based on the state law or something like that. So the criminal compensation amount paid by the state government boosts the total criminal compensation amount that innocent victims can receive. And according to the cases shown in the YouTube videos, at least innocent victims can receive a couple of millions of dollars for ticket custody when they were exonerated. So whether people evaluate this much as very, very cheap or very reasonable for their custody term when they weigh the size of victims' life potential that they were deprived by the investigative authorities and the amount of criminal compensation in a balance all depends on how people feel about it. But what I can say for sure about it at least is compensation for innocent victims in the United States is way more blessed than that in Japan from the aspects of the amount of criminal compensation. Of course, it is really insane to calculate a human's life value with how much it is. This must be priceless anyway. In case of Japan, it is said that the criminal compensation amount is basically from 1,000 yen to 12.5 thousand yen per day. In US dollars, it comes to be like from about $7 to $90 per day. So even if you can receive maximum $90 per day, if converting it to hourly wage, that's going to be only $4 per hour. When thinking about the degree of mental anguish of innocent victims, that's even more vicious than the sweatshop because they are in custody all day long in the jail. So, and converting it to yearly wage, that's going to be $32,850, and converting it to decade wage, that's going to be $328,500. So, which means maximum amount of criminal compensation for innocent victims in the custody for decades in Japan is only $320,000 US dollars. So they don't even guarantee $1 million, even though they endure custody for 10 years in jail. And moreover, the place where Japanese people can get criminal compensation is only the Japanese government and prefectures and other municipalities that form this country are not given privilege to uniquely pay the additional criminal compensation to innocent victims with their discretion in addition to the criminal compensation from the Japanese government like the United States. So instead of that, there is a system of lawsuits for state redress that enables us to pursue the liability to detectives for negligence or purpose in the process of questioning and investigation. So if it is accepted, additional compensation that's not covered with the first criminal compensation will be paid to innocent victims. But an innocent victim as a plaintiff who files a lawsuit for state red list needs to take great pains to prove like there was abusive questioning or there was abusive investigation for making false statement by detectives or people involved in investigation. And detectives or people involved in investigation as a defendant don't submit the disadvantageous evidences that will disclose their secret evil deed. So it is really, really weird, I think. It is really weird. So why innocent victims as plaintiffs need to do that kind of things? I strongly feel at the moment that innocent conviction becomes conclusive at a court, the Supreme Court, or the Japanese government needs to voluntarily establish a third-party organization to execute in-house investigation for illegal activities in the process of investigation and questioning in the investigative agencies and authorities. So police officers and prosecutors try to even justify their activities even after innocent victims are exonerated in court in Japan. By the way, there is overwhelmingly few cases that lawsuit for state red list filed by innocent victims was accepted in Japan, because it is really difficult to prove the illegality of investigation from the plaintiff side, because all the evidences belong to investigative agencies. So rather than in the first place the number of parameters of innocent victims who sue the detectives and the people involved in the investigation are very few in Japan because of mental anguish. They don't want to be worried by the number of memories of hard days when they were detained without understanding what was going on there. What was going on then? For your reference, I will introduce to you some cases that innocent victims were suspected as a criminal, and custody term and criminal compensation amount here. The first case, the Fukawa case, this case was robbery murder. His custody term is for 29 years from 1967 and 1996. And the criminal compensation amount is $961,000 US. And second one is Ashikaga case. This case is girl murder. And his custody term is for about 18 years from 1991 and 2009. And the criminal compensation amount is $592,000 US. And the third one is Menda case. This case is robbery murder. And his custody term is for about 34 years. 34 years from 1949 to 1983. The criminal compensation amount is $666,000 US. By the way, if an innocent victim is convicted and sentenced to capital punishment, and an innocent victim is exonerated at a court after the execution of the capital punishment, the criminal compensation amount paid to family members of this innocent victim is maximum $222,000 US. So you might understand how terribly low the awareness of human rights in Japan is. Seeing the extremely low amounts of criminal compensation in Japan, I can see the thoughts. I can see through the thoughts of the Japanese government that it takes the stance that a few sacrifices are unavoidable and inevitable in the process of executing justice. So the Japanese judicial system is no different from that in communist countries, or much worse than that.